sentiment, benevolence. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoga Varochana Mahamudra Mani Padma Shvala Pravartaya
Please stand and join me in the three refuges. We go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, first in Sino-Korean and then in English. So please throw your voice in as best you can.
Sibam Samse Shema Chale Samju Il She
I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teaching
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please remain standing for just a short while longer while we offer this dedication to the ancestors of this land that we're on right now. On this 20th day of October 2024, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, full presence here at the service this morning extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be a deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. Let us sit in meditation once again for a short period of time. Please join me in some mindful stretching, an embodied end to our meditation practice. Please sit comfortably. So good morning, all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Welcome to the temple.
Good morning, Mama.
What did you do during that unexpected 2 minutes of silence after we ended the stretching until you heard the sound of the chakti? I'm just curious to sort of say out loud what you did.
What to do.
I was thinking, wait, are we doing another round of meditation? Okay.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking, are we gonna do it where Dharma just sit for the whole thing, just the silence?
Uh-huh.
I think
we
didn't-
were doing and not noticing it for the next few minutes. I was thinking about an announcement that I want to make about the family service.
I was wondering if you forgot what we were doing.
I was waiting for the lesson to start and didn't realize the lesson had already started.
All right. Good responses. This, I wanted you to connect you to this experience of waiting, because in our culture in particular, we're not used to waiting at all. And 2 minutes can seem sort of like an eternity, and we're doing all of these other things. So there's an impatience that can arise, and the monkey mind can arise, and all of this kind of stuff. So the opposite of that is patience. And this is a virtue in Buddhism. It's called Shanti, Kshntti. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me tell you a couple of other stories about waiting, which is one aspect of this Shanti practice. Again, it's Kshntti. So this is a paramita, Shanti, and we were having a discussion about it at breakfast the other day, and people were sort of offering stories about their idea of what patience is all about. And Illy, who said I could use the story that she offered, said that she had to go to the post office, and it was a very long line, people waiting in line, and fidgeting, all these kinds of responses you would expect. She noticed that, an older gentleman, probably whose language, English was a second language, was struggling with filling out this form, some kind of form. And so while they were waiting in line, she went over to him and she quietly helped him complete this form. And then he was able to leave and not stand in line anymore. And then the person behind her was just muttering under his breath, "If I don't have time for this, I have to get going." And so she said, "Would you like to go ahead of me?" And she let him do that. And then when she got up to the counter, the postal worker said to her, "You demonstrated a remarkable amount of patience. Thank you for doing that." So I think the point of this story is it's not so much the waiting, it's what do we do with that time that we're waiting? How do we use it? And we can use it in a positive way, demonstrating this patience. That is, I think, born out of taking it as an opportunity to notice, to see what's going on, and to respond. Okay, so here is a second story about waiting. And this one comes from Zen Master Robert Aiken, who has written this book about all the paramitas. And one of the ones he talks about is Shanti Paramita. He says, "I remember going to see my friend Bob Olson whose picture is on the altar in the Dokashan room, where he was dying of cancer in Seattle. He looked very bad. His complexion was almost green. He had to carry around a little bag because he didn't have control over his bladder. I said, "How are you?" He said, "I'm waiting." Wonderful patience. On another occasion, I expressed surprise when I learned from a Roshi that a very old timer, a middle-aged monk, was still working on his very first poem. The Roshi said, "He's waiting. We're all waiting." So I find this story about waiting and patience, and the virtue of patience, very inspiring because, in a sense, we're all in this balance between life and death. And this sort of gets to more of a deeper aspect of the patience kind of practice. So the symbol for Shanti in Buddhism is a sword over the heart. It's interesting because this sword, if we think about it, reminds us that we're all in a precarious situation all the time. And how is it that we work with this in our lives? So there's three aspects of patience that Robert Aiken highlights. The first is gentle forbearance. And so this means it sort of incorporates forgiveness or an open attitude. Give an example of this that I encounter sometimes when I'm typing emails or I'm delivering some kind of message. The response I get back is a question about the very thing that I have just talked about. And so a little impatience arises. But if instead I approach that with forgiveness, well, my attention wanders a lot too. I don't expect everybody to hear every word that I say. Then I can approach the situation a lot more openness. So that's an example of forbearance. So for thinking before I respond in irritation. We have to be careful though with forbearance because especially if you're maybe part of a marginalized group, you may hear this message as, well, just suck it up. Have to live with things the way they are. And that's not what's meant either. So what if, during this time of election, you go to the polls and somebody's there trying to threaten and intimidate you and allow you not to vote. In that situation, what is your forbearance practice? Is it to keep silent and suck it up? Well, that would be one response. But here's where the wisdom practice comes in, is in that instance, probably you need to speak up and to take action, and something along those lines. So that's forbearance. The second aspect is endurance of hardships. And again, this gets back to that image of the sword hanging over the heart. Have all sorts of things to endure in our lives. So the other day when we were having this conversation about Shanti Paramita Chichong, one of our residents, the retired monk who's now living with us, he said that very early in his career, when he was just thinking about being a monk, he went to a Chinese monastery for some sort of retreat. And he was talking to one of the monks after the retreat. And he said, I'm thinking about becoming a monk. What's the most important thing I need to cultivate in order to do this? And without hesitation, the response was endurance. And as I think about this practice, this endurance practice, as it relates to Buddhism and living in a Buddhist community, we have plenty of examples of that in our own history. So our temple, as many of you know, was founded by a monk who came here from Korea with nothing, really, nothing in his pocket. And he had during his lifetime been an orphan, he'd been experienced war, all sorts of things. And so he already came, he had a lot of this quality of endurance already. But then he founded our society and began to build temples. And in the early days, everybody who came to the temple, who lived at the temple, had a job. Everybody had to have a job in order to pay the mortgage. And everybody tolerated rather difficult circumstances. Have to go next door to the neighbors to use a bathroom because we didn't have one, that kind of thing. And then the Sangha began to grow. And it became more complex because as the practice became more inclusive, more public facing, members would come here for classes. They came here for a variety of reasons other than, just building a temple. And this new stage too requires a lot of endurance. You have to shift your thinking. You have to be willing to embrace people at many different stages of practice. And then over the years, inevitably within a community, there arise occasions of conflict and strife. And people leave. People get into arguments. These kinds of things. And during those moments, it's very tempting to say, I've had enough. I'm going to walk away. Somebody else can carry on this standard for us. But our founders didn't do that, and for which I'm very grateful. One of our founders, Haji Sunam, is here. She's been through that for 50 years. And so when we see these things happening, it's more with a state of acceptance and equanimity and endurance that she approaches it with. I'm sure as you think about your life, you can think about situations that require endurance as well. Has your life always been nice and smooth and rosy? No, I'm sure all of us have stuff going on in our lives. It could be things like divorce. It could be loss of fortune. So maybe you came from a family that had a lot of wealth and all the wealth was lost. Or any number of situations. And looking around in our world today as all of the trouble that's going on, it takes endurance to be able to be with that and to sit with that. So Domio Burke, who's one of our more a modern day teacher, talks about Shanti as being staying power. And I like that image. I like that terminology. So it's the willingness to work with whatever's right in front of us and not only these big situations that come up in our life, but every single day, how do we work with the irritations, the impatience, negative kinds of emotions that arise? How do we just be with those and sort of not lose heart? So that brings us to the question, well, if this is a desirable trait, a virtue, how does one cultivate it? Because everything in Buddhism, as you know, is a skill to be developed. It's not something that either you have or you don't have. So how do we build our endurance? Our meditation practice in and of itself is an opportunity to do that. So as you sit in silence today, we were sitting in silence for 25 minutes. Sometimes an itch comes up and you just want to scratch and move around, do this kind of thing. Sometimes there's a pain. Sometimes the mind is going all over the place and you just don't want to sit for one more second. So meditation practice is a good opportunity to develop endurance. We have once a year our all-night sitting to celebrate the Buddha's enlightenment. I know a few of you have been to this all-night sitting. In one year we were talking about, well, what is this all-night sitting all about? Yes, it's about celebrating the Buddha's enlightenment, sort of honoring that experience. But you know what? Most of all, it's about endurance. What do you do at 3 a.m. when you're the timekeeper and the clock has stopped and it looks like not one more second it's going to elapse, but you know the sitting is not yet over. So just another example of Buddhist practice that we cultivate this quality of endurance. So other practical examples, I was just observing this week, how is it that I try to build endurance? One of the things I tried was, everybody has their to-do list. So I have my to-do list, and at the beginning of the day, I decided I'm going to do the thing I don't want to do the most. I'm going to do it first. And then I'll move on to the next most odious thing, and so on and so forth. So that builds a little bit of endurance right there. Another way of working with this endurance practice is to try to connect with the whys. So when I'm in a situation where I kind of want to walk away, I say, why am I doing this? Why am I here? What is this all about? And it helps me connect to this quality we call bodhicitta. Anybody heard that term, bodhicitta? So it's sort of this deep commitment to compassion and living our lives with loving kindness. So a reminder, that's why I'm doing this, is so that I can bring more loving kindness and compassion to the world. So it helps to cultivate bodhicitta. Some people do this maybe through metta practice, a loving kindness practice, where you sit in meditation and you offer these kind wishes, not only to yourselves and those you care about, but also to those with whom you have difficulty. Another way that I try to cultivate endurance is to try to be realistic about what I can accomplish, be a little kind with myself in that way. And also to remind myself that endurance does not always mean just sitting there toughing it out no matter what. Sometimes it means taking a break and engaging in leisure activity so that there is some sort of balance restored. So, and this one's hard for me because when somebody says, hey, do you want to take an hour to go on a field trip, to go to the park, to do something? My usual response is, no, too busy. I want to finish this thing right in front of me. Whereas I really need to allow myself to say yes more often to that sentiment. And then the last aspect, so that's the endurance aspect, then the last aspect has to do with acceptance of the truth. And ultimately, acceptance of the truth gets to acceptance that I don't have a fixed identity that I can hang on to, carry with me. I do not have infinite life. I'm just a pile of skandhas, a pile of processes that's ever changing all the time. I can't find myself in there anymore. So that's sort of the ultimate kind of acceptance that we're going after, but also everyday acceptance of this is the situation, this is what it is that I have to work with right now, and let's see what I can do with it. Okay. So now I am very interested in hearing sort of your comments, your thoughts, your examples of how you work with this virtue of patience in your life. Because everybody has it. Who would like to be in the microphone runner?
Raise your hand if you have a comment.
I'd like to share a quote from another teacher who said that the precious commodity in life is not time, it's attention. So when we're being impatient, we're feeling at this moment like this is no good. We got to get to the next thing. We need to do that change. It's hard, so we need endurance. But yeah, we need to be present in this moment when we're impatient.
You know, my example of patience is when I went to the Buddhist temple 25 years ago. And my teacher told me, he said, the hardest thing you're gonna ever do in this lifetime is learn to do nothing at all. It's very difficult. See, it takes discipline, patience, and endurance to come to your meditation mat and just sit quietly. He said, young child, I'm gonna start you off at 15 minutes. And that in itself grew in our retreats. I learned to sit 9 hours a day and sit in meditation alone. And he asked me a question once when I first got there 25 years ago. I was 47. He said, how old are you? I said, I'm 47. He said, how long did it take you to become 47 years old? And that's when a light bulb went off. He said, just be patient. It's going to happen. Thank you.
I'm thinking of the difference in the sensation of being in the moment and being patient versus feeling impatient. Like waiting in line at the grocery store, I'll notice my first impulse is to be like, oh, and then when I can take a breath and say, like, you're gonna be standing here regardless. So just, breathing and actually being patient right in the moment, then suddenly all of this pressure and angst and lots of different emotions are alleviated in just being there. And then it's an enjoyable moment to have to just, I'm like thankful to be waiting in line at the grocery store.
So yeah, I think different situations, I tend to do different things. So like, let's say I'm stuck in traffic. It's like rush hour. I think I'm able to like ground myself, or just like, why am I feeling this irritation? And then I tell myself it's not productive, and it's just like, might as well enjoy the music, make use of my time, instead of being frustrated and angry with something I can't control. Yeah, I'm good at it.
I think there are many situations which are frustrating, and in myself, I get paused, I get prevented from doing anything because there is something that isn't right, and I focus on what isn't right. And I was thinking about some of these comments that there's a feeling sometimes, oh, I just want to move on. Let me go to the next step. It could be the next step, like the organization move on, which has kept their political forwardness, but rather than being stuck on one election, you said let's just move on. And for me, it helps me to have that thought. Okay, why should I tie myself up? I just want to move on in a direction that I know is right.
I was glad you mentioned the loving kindness practice in there, because I feel like that is my best defense against impatience and that irritation of moment. I like to make up stories about the people around me that I don't know, and like we were going to school the other day and somebody cut in front of me, and we looked at the clock and went, oh, 10 minutes to 8, and I bet you wherever they have to start work is not 10 minutes away, so they're just like, or like, oh, just making up stories for why others are impatient, because that we feed off of that, and that, so having loving kindness for those around who are experiencing impatience and a lack of being able to wait is sometimes how I get through it myself.
Thank you. I want to share experience with you. Over the past few years, I'm very patient outwardly. I rarely get angry. I don't show frustration. I'm very polite. But at the same time, inwardly, in my thoughts, you can consider every day there are certain moments when I'm extremely impatient in my thoughts. So many things are revolving in my mind. I'm thinking. So outwardly, people might be thinking that I'm totally fine, but inwardly, I'm not patient. So I want to know your thoughts on what is this mindset? Like, you can tell something about me that why this is there in me right now, and how can I be more patient in bringing my thoughts to a stop and becoming more patient in thinking.
I was thinking about the last time that we talked about patience, and at the end of the service when we were putting the mats away, somebody cut in front of me in line to put the mattress away. And I was like, we just talked about this. But I was just thinking about how funny that was, and took it as an opportunity to practice patience. Yeah.
Thank you for this. I feel like as I've worked with different issues inside of myself over years, patience with myself, and even opening up to greater wisdom and trusting that things are moving and they're healing. It's still really, it's a constant reminder to be patient and kind with myself, that things take time.
So in my personal work, I'm an artist and a musician. And one of the things, especially as a musician, is the practice of patience in crafting your craft. One of the things that I had to relearn, especially as somebody that's getting back into playing the piano, wasn't played the piano since they were a kid. There's so much impatience of like learning the scales and relearning and repetitive motion and this and this and this. And so I just want to be able to play this song. I just want to be able to do this. And it wasn't until, and I'm about to be 31 very soon, until like this year did I realize, oh, the practice itself of playing those notes, of getting in that motion, of getting in that teaches me patience. And no matter how much time I put into it, I appreciate the time that I get out of it.
Yes, I just want to add one more thing. I realized in my practice that impatience is closely associated with time. And my teacher told me time is a concept, it's not a reality. So he said, the moment I leave the moment, you invite confusion. He said, stay in each moment and be fully present, as I heard someone share earlier. Just stay present in every moment. And that gives me a great freedom. Thank you.
I'm amazed nobody else has said it. Children?
It's just such a practice in patience. My first job at 14 was teaching little kids how to ski. And by little, I mean 4-year-olds. So the analogy I used at the time was it was like herding cats. You would want them to do one thing, and you would tell them all what to do, and then they would just scatter. And sometimes it wasn't even their own fault, because I taught first-time skiers that were usually 4 or 5 years old. So we would bring them up this little magic carpet ramp, and we would put them at the top, and they wouldn't know how to stop yet, or how to like just not slide down the hill. So I would turn around to help one kid, and I would turn back around. There's another kid just going down the hill, and they can't stop yet, and there's kids at the bottom. So it was just always a work in practicing patience with them and with myself, because I was learning how to be a teacher. And so children are just, they really teach you where you need to work on yourself.
Yes.
In so many ways.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when there was that exercise silent 2 minutes, and he told us about it. That was news to me. I was off with my own thoughts. So maybe I should start matching my shoelaces to my belt. Then I come online when he says that. So it's like, for that reason, like traffic jams and post office lines, they don't really bother me. I just zone out. But I'm not very aware either, so it's like, how much of a problem is this? I've always kind of felt like, as a Buddhist meditator, I should be kind of tempering that daydreaminess a little bit and learning to be more here. But it doesn't feel like my meditation has given me much headway on that. It seems like that's just kind of baked into my mind, from early childhood. It's kind of a dilemma to me, like, what should I do with that? Should I let it get in the way of my own, self-acceptance, or should I just be like, this is how I'm wired? I don't know, but that's a question for me.
I like to give myself treats.
So, I tend to, as so many of us do,
Someone said earlier, our lives are really what we
pay attention to.
And
I find myself paying attention to how I'm suffering or how I'm impatient, annoyed, whatever. And
sometimes when I do that, I
stop
myself and say, well, there's something good about this moment. There's something
I can find that's
be nice. And maybe it's like I'm late for work and in traffic, and it's like,
well, but the way
the sun is hitting that tree is pretty money right now, And so I just try to find something in the moment that is good, that feels good to me, regardless of whatever chaos is around me.
Thank you. I'm also glad that you brought up kids, because I've been thinking my whole career I've either been a student or a teacher. So I've been a teacher since '91.
And the way public schools work is they're based on factors, right? You have bells and lines, and you have to go to this time and this place, and you have to be present for this, that, and the other thing, and the schedule doesn't change. So I have some 29, and they all have to go to lunch at a certain time, and they all have to get on the bus at a certain time, and they all have to, and I can't change that. So a long time ago in my career,
I've decided
I was just going to adopt the idea that slow is fast. And if I really try to get it done on somebody else's schedule, I'm going to try to keep the schedule. But if I try to do things because somebody else has said, you got to do it in this amount of time, it takes me longer to undo all of the messiness that happened because I did it fast. So, and I teach my 7-year-old this, and they remind me, slow is fast. You slow it down, and you just take your time as much as you can, it's a faster way to get to the
When I was a teenager, I took karate lessons for several years, and we ended each karate lesson by saying the word patience. So we had a little ritual. At the end of each karate lesson, we would meditate for a minute, and then we did this symbol with our hands. We did this kind of hand mudra that was like this. And this is a fist with one hand and stopping your fist with your other hand. And so we all did this together, and then Sensei would say patience, and we would say Kukuro-san, which is the Japanese word for patience. And that was what we did at the end of every karate lesson.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and comments. As always, I learn a lot from you every time we get together on Sundays. So much gratitude to you. We'll do the 4 great vows and then have some announcements. And if you want to have the iPad, they're waiting for the iPad so it can become now a square machine.
Patience.
Patience. All right. So please repeat after me. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
I'll start and then I'll let Will.
Alan's going to do the announcements today, and I'll just start with one announcement. For those of you that were here last week, you saw a bunch of kids here. We had about a dozen kids, and that's our family service, which we have once per month. It's always on the second Sunday of the month. And so we had a little Dharma talk over here, and then after that, what we do is we break into groups, age groups for the kids. And so if you're interested in joining us for that, and you'd like to work with one of the age groups, we have 2 adults per group, and we do a craft together or an activity together. And it is a nice opportunity for people who don't have kids too. Maybe your kids are grown up and you want to recapture some of that joy that comes with connecting with kids for a couple hours, not even a couple hours, for like an hour. Or maybe you are a young adult and you don't know whether you want to have kids or not. So this could be a way to try it out and see. And also a way to cultivate patience. So anyway, we have 2 adults working with each of the groups. And if you're interested in volunteering some time on the second Sunday of the month throughout the school year, we don't do it in the summer, come and talk to me after the service.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Arbor Zen Temple. I guess for a lot of people mentioned that getting stuck in traffic and commuting, I think that hits me like, I mean, not just that, but that's like part of a larger theme for me of frustration, where I sort of like frustrated, not with, I'm almost never angry with people, but I'm frustrated with like people not doing their job. If they planned this highway better, it could have, I could be home 10 minutes earlier, right? Things like that. And there's a song I really like that says, shortcuts can slow you down. So I think of that whenever that comes to my mind. This is the announcements paper here. You can find it outside. And you can also sign up for the email bulletins as well in the list. And so there's, let's see. There's family services as mentioned. So that's like, I think, the next one is going to be November 10. Yeah. And then we have one-day retreats, and we also have introductory meditation sessions and yoga classes, and just a lot of events here and different dates. And we also have the recovery Dharma, right?
Recovery Dharma will be today in the historic Buddha Hall Library at noon, the big yellow house next door. And on the steps going up, there are some heirloom squashes. There's a fresh variety, I can't even try and pronounce the name, and there's a blue squash, Japanese, I can't remember. They make nice decorations if you want it, but they're even better to eat.
So do we have any work practice?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, it's a really big squash that's out there if you want one to carve for Halloween. Thank you for bringing those for us last week as well, John. Yeah. I have a couple of announcements. One is that we're starting to have membership meetings. We usually have had membership meetings twice a year in spring and in fall for decades. And after COVID, we never got back doing them again. And it was really fine time for a group of members to get together to discuss various aspects of the Dharma. So this is the sheet that you can sign up for. There's one next week at 11:45 after this service, November 3rd at 3 p.m., and November 10th right after this service. So if you are interested, please sign up. And I know there's a lot of you that have already signed up to be members, but you do it online and you contribute so much a month, but we never do know who you are. Who is this? Whatever the name is. So we're hoping that then we'll get to know more of the people that come and consider themselves members, and just to get to know each other. I think it's one of the most valuable things to have a group of Dharma friends. And then we've been trying to organize some of our things in the temple, especially in our new building. So the insides of these mats, we have a back storage of them. And we have been sunning them and pounding them and they're outside and getting them ready to store. And we would appreciate some help for about 15 minutes right after this service to carry them. And Ilby's going to help too. Yeah, up to the top floor of the Sangha house. So you'll see them if you just meet in the backyard. We'll form a big chain and pass them all. Okay, thank you. It's called Together Action.
Awesome. Thank you, Hajru. And besides that, this temple is supported by your kind donations of time and money, just like this time, 15 minutes. And we also have I think gardening and other work practice on Saturdays, 3 p.m. usually, right? Usually 3 p.m. Sometimes I go to those as well. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can reach out for the people in gray. You can ask me as well. They'll point you to someone else probably. Thank you.
Let's talk about moving the mats and cushions.
Oh yeah. So the mats and cushions, if they're not on the if they're not on the carpet, then everything else can go either. You can see like there are cushions there and mats there, also on that side. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's easy for them to come apart as you carry them. So when you put them down, please make sure the front of the mat is tucked in and the pile, you can kind of see a little tucked in over there, but could do a little better. Because other people come and they get affected by how well we keep our space. So please be mindful.
Okay, so let's all stand, and we will conclude the formal vows. So just facing the altar, feeling your feet connected to the earth beneath you, and a sense of gratitude for everyone's presence here. So breathing, we'll make 3 vows.
Yeah. I'm assuming it says after, but I was like, I mean, there's only one, so it'd be pretty awkward for anybody who hasn't met us. Alright. Vaccine already. I don't stand here. Vaccine. Yeah, I got my niece and this. For both my dad and my mother, like, bedridden after. Like my dad, he had iris. And yeah, I know it. I mean, you can see yesterday. So nobody talked that long. Usually they're not like this is where everybody. So this is an outlier this year. Usually your arms
Oh, I see. Yeah, no problem.